Doing good, and you?
I'm doing pretty good.
Great. It's great to have you here. Cliff, please give us a brief bio on yourself.
Okay. 44, fixed to be 45. Live here in Monroe, Louisiana. I grew up here, been here all my life. I believe I was away from here about 7 years. I used to guide for hunting, and that's about the only time I've been away from here. And grew up here on a farm, pretty much. Had horses and cows, and that was my chores as a youngster. I'm a heavy equipment operator by trade. I don't guide anymore, but other than that, that's it.
What kind of complications do you have to deal with as a result of having that encounter in a small community like Monroe versus what you would be facing from living in a bigger city like Dallas?
I live outside of Monroe, about 12 miles northeast of the city itself. I'm out in the country. It's very small. There's probably, I would say, 500 people here. It's actually called Swartz. But as far as problems, I wouldn't know, other than everybody pretty much keeps to themselves, and it's very nice out here. Rarely any violence or anything like that. It's just a nice, quiet farmland, pretty much, all out through here.
Sounds like a really nice place to me. Is it one of those places where everyone knows everything about everyone else?
That's correct.
Yeah, I can understand that. You told me in the pre-interview about how you wanted to keep this to yourself with regards to the people that lived around you there, and I don't blame you.
Yeah, it's just, I haven't known how to deal with this, really. And it's taken me quite some time to get back to myself.
Oh no, that's totally understandable. It's just so out of the realm of what you would expect to ever have to deal with. I'm not surprised it's been such a challenge for you.
Especially being a hunter all my life. I spend my time in the woods when I'm not working. I mean, that's my life. And that's just something I love doing and enjoy it. And that kind of came to a halt. It was hard to deal with because I couldn't understand it. But I understand it more now, I think. But I'm just now really being able to deal with it. Of course, I haven't been able to tell anybody other than you.
That's one of the things about you having that dogman encounter that just makes it so tough to deal with. We're not talking about someone who lives in the city who went out into the country and happened to have an encounter here. We're not talking about a person that very rarely goes out into the sticks. We're talking about a man here who his life was going out into the sticks to hunt or fish or name it. So, yeah, the outdoors, that's Cliff's life. So that's why it really hit so hard, the fact that he had that encounter and consequently can't do a lot of the things he used to enjoy doing. Before we get into the details of this encounter, there's something else I wanted to cover here, Cliff. You mentioned your experience guiding. When you were guiding one time in Montana, from what I understand, you had an experience with a sleeping grizzly bear that I was hoping you'd tell us about.
That's correct. I had went to a guide training school, and you have to go to a guide training school to get your professional big game guide license. Also, you have to be able to take care of anybody if they get hurt. So you have to go to a class, a medical class, and get a card for that. And the whole purpose of the training school, going through that, which I don't think I hardly learned anything when I went to that other than tying some knots and shoeing horses. And we never had to really do that down here. But the whole purpose is to get your professional big game guide license, because you can't take anybody hunting and not have a license, or there's repercussions on that if they catch you. So, but I had went through this school with this man up there. It's in Trout Creek, Montana. Well, he automatically wanted me to go to work for him after the school was over, so I did. And the first 2 weeks into the hunting season, it was September, we had a drop camp. It was about 16 miles off the nearest road. And I was down there for 3 days. by myself, waiting on the fellas to bring the guys down to go hunting. So I'm scouting during these days, trying to find the elk. And I was walking down a game trail, and yellow jackets like to get on these game trails up on the upper side of the trail that the elk and the deer make, and they bury themselves up in the side of the slope. Well, I run into a bunch of yellow jackets, and I was swatting them and running, and I took off running down the trail. I'm swatting yellow jackets, and I come around this bend where there's a big rock face, and as I'm swatting yellow jackets coming around there, I come up on a sleeping grizzly bear up against that rock face, and it spooked him, woke him up, and spooked me, and I'm swatting yellow jackets, and I start backing up, and I have my sidearm, my 44 mag, and I'm backing up. He charged me, and I went to pull my pistol, and as I was backing up, I fell over what's called deadfall, and I believe that's the only thing that saved me, because it caught me about the back of my knees, and as I was falling backwards, he swatted, hit the ground, and slung rocks all over me, and as I'm starting to pull the trigger, he wheels and heads the opposite direction, and I get up, and I head downhill as quick as I can go. But that was quite an experience.
Oh, I'll bet it was. Be honest now, did you have a Charmin moment after that?
No, but I don't believe even Carl Lewis could have caught me going down that hill.
Yeah, I guess I'm all that surprised. I think I'd do exactly the same.
Yeah, I will. I'll never forget that one.
Oh, I'm sure you won't. I don't think anyone would. Was that the same time or the same area where you had a tree fall on you? I think that happened when you were out guiding, didn't it?
That happened here at home on the wildlife management area. I was scouting again, and it had been wet for months, and water was just a little over ankle deep in most of the woods over here, and that's when I like to go because it pushes the deer up on the high spots, and that's what I was doing, was just out there looking for the high spots and seeing if there was any sign. And they had just select cut. I don't know if you know what I mean by that. What I mean by select cut is that's where a logging company comes in, and they cut out about every other tree. And that way the other trees can, fully grow. So they had just done that about 3 months, and it had been raining solid for about 2 months. I'm out there, and I remember looking at the weather, and I knew it was supposed to rain sometime later that afternoon, but it came in a little bit quicker than I thought it would. I was standing there and looking around, and I noticed the dark clouds coming in, and probably about 5-10 minutes later, I heard this awful sound. It sounded like 10 trains coming through the woods. And I'm like, what in the world is this? The next thing I know, I just see a wall of trees that are uprooting, just coming toward me. It was a 75-mile-an-hour wind in front of that storm, and I've never been through anything like that in my life. It was crazy. And I'm dodging trees and running and dodging. I mean, these trees were coming over by the hundreds. I mean, they were just uprooting. So I finally made it over to where they had stopped select cutting, which is called the White Line. And anyway, I'm walking. I thought I was out of most of the danger. And when just a few moments later, I heard, limbs are still cracking and trees still falling over. And I heard a crack to my left, and I turned and looked, and the tree was already halfway over coming toward me. And I had moved so quick to try and get out of the way, I come completely out of one of my rubber boots. And it hit me across my back and smashed me down in the water. And normally, if it wouldn't have been so wet, I'm sure it would have killed me outright. I had a cell phone, but normally I keep it in my pants pocket. For some reason, I just happen to have it in my shirt pocket. And as this tree, as I'm still smashed underwater, that was the first thing that came to my mind. I knew it was the only thing that was going to save my life. So I reached and grabbed my cell phone, and I'm having to use my other hand to push up on my chin and keep my head above water. And my other hand, phone, water's dripping off of my phone, and I'm dialing for help. Finally got hold to one friend of mine, and of course he thought I was joking there for a second, and he realized I wasn't. I lashed him pretty good. But he got on the phone. He said he was calling 911. I had no signal out there, so I was having to say it over and over again to him, trying to explain where I was at. He hung up, and I called 911 myself, and was trying to explain to the lady on the other end where I was, and then my battery starts flashing. When my battery starts flashing on my phone, you got about 3 minutes on this particular phone, and that's it. And I was trying to explain to her, and she kept trying to over-talk me. I had laughed her pretty good to try to explain to her about my phone. And she said they were trying to get a signal, and I'm trying to explain to her where I at, my phone dies. So for 4.5 hours, I'm struggling to keep my head above water, and that was an experience in itself. Life from my eyes, it was, I thought that was it. And I about didn't make it, but 2 game wardens happened to find me in just the right time, because about 10 minutes later, I started passing out. Once they found me, if I'd have passed out one time, I'd drowned. So I'm a lucky man. I'm lucky to be here.
Oh, I'd say you are. Thank goodness they did find you.
The ambulance guy, when they had me in the back, and they were carrying me out in the back of a Ranger, I do remember this. I don't remember too much because I kept passing out, but he was running them temperature strips across my forehead, and I kept seeing him shake his head and throw one outside of the Ranger. And he went through about 4 of them doing that, and I remember asking him, I said, what's the matter? And he went, son, your body temperature's so low, your organs shouldn't even be working.
Oh.
And he said, you better be thanking somebody that you're here. It was quite an experience. Don't want to go through that again.
Yeah, I can't say I blame you. That had to be horrible.
It was horrible. Very horrible.
Yeah, thank goodness you made it. Well, Cliff, let's get into this encounter of yours. Please give us every last detail that comes to mind.
All right. Like I say, I've been hunting all my life. And one morning, I decided to go over here across the street from my mother and daddy's place. It's a pretty good section of woods. And I've been going out there ever since I was about 6 with my dad. And I was just going out there to shoot some deer. And anyway, as soon as I got over in the woods, I noticed, and this has happened to me 4 or 5 times before. It's kind of strange. I got over there, and it was totally quiet. Like, not even a cricket. Nothing, like the woods were void of life. It's a strange thing, and I'm sure if anybody's done much hunting, if they've done a pretty good bit of hunting, they may have seen this in their lifetime. But anyway, I decided I was going to go on and go to my normal spot. And I slipped most time. I sneak and take my time. I rarely hunt out of a tree stand. Sometimes I do, but my favorite way to hunt deer is on the ground. And I'm slipping, and there's a creek that runs through there and cuts through and joins an adjacent property. And I'm slipping through there, and there's 2 huge cedar trees that's over there. And when I mean big, I mean they were probably 5 to 6 feet thick at the base. Well, both of them, they've been over there ever since I can remember. But both of them had fallen, and I had slipped up to one of them there and was slipping down the edge of it. That's just the way I hunt. And I caught a whiff of something I've never smelled before. So I stood there, and I'm trying to figure out the wind direction. And not much wind blowing at all. So I kneel down, and I'm trying to find the source of what that smell is. And all of a sudden I hear this low guttural, like growl, kind of like a, um, I don't know, like a cat or something like. I hear this just low guttural moaning, and I can tell this. I'm beside this big cedar tree. The other cedar tree is about 15 foot on the other side of this one I'm talking about. They're laying perfectly parallel to each other. Like I say, about 5.5 foot off the ground. So I'm knelt down, kind of leaning myself up on some vines there, and all of a sudden, it stands up, and this guy's back to me, totally black and massive built. I mean, basically like a bodybuilder. And in my mind, I knew what I was looking at, but I'm sitting there questioning what I'm looking at, because there's no black bear or anything like it. And I knew that's not what it was. And about that time, there's a swamp rabbit about 6, 7 feet away from me to my left that took off. And they make a certain sound when they're spooked. I don't know if other people, I'm sure other people have heard this. But it took off running. When it did, that's when he turned around, and that's when I got. Give me a second here.
Take your time, buddy.
Anyway, he had turned around, and that's when I got a good look at him. And I mean, he's not 20 feet from me. Max 20 feet. And when he turned at the sound of that rabbit taking off, that's when he spotted me. And that's when I raised my weapon, because he laid his ears back. And me growing up around horses and stuff, I know what that gesture means. And as soon as he laid his ears back, that's when I raised my 7-mag. I had a 7-mag. And that's when I raised up, and I was fixing to shoot him in the face. And he took one leap and cleared, I don't know, the 30, 40 feet, kind of straight away from me. And when he hit the ground, he turned to my right and took off in a speed that I've never seen of anything. And it run around to my right and disappeared into a little small thicket there. And I'm sitting waiting on him to come out the other side. And he never did. It's like the thicket wasn't very big either. It was like he run into nothing and just disappeared.
So it sounds like it was holding up in that thicket then.
It was holding up behind. It was directly behind that cedar tree. And I don't know what it was doing. I didn't even care to even go look after that. I backed my way out of there, questioning many things. Because what I had just seen ain't supposed to be real. But it is, I assure you. Very real.
After you saw that thing and realized that it was out there with you, when you had to walk home, I know this happened in the woods across the road from where you live, but it had to be awful walking home from there, from that spot, knowing that it could reappear at any moment behind you.
Well, I was backing up most of the way out of there, and I was very alert. It didn't take me too long to get out of there, but I was very observant of everything in this. And I've not been able to go back over there to that particular area since then. And I haven't been able to tell anybody because it's just, I don't know how, they're going to think I'm crazy. They're going to think I'm crazy. So I've never shared it with anyone besides you. I questioned many things after that, didn't I? I questioned many things.
Oh, I'm sure you did. That's only natural. If something like that is out there in the woods, then who knows what else might be out there, so I can definitely understand that.
And I'm just now being able to get back to myself, and that's been 4 years almost.
Yeah, it's got to be really hard to try and get some semblance of normalcy back in your life after having an experience like that. It's going to be some time, I'm sure, before you can have anything close to a normal experience out in the woods if you do decide to go back out into the woods to do anything, but I do think you're going to get there.
I still go, around my house and in different areas. It's a little more open. But when we're deer hunting, if I got my friend with me, then we will go back to the ticket guard. I hadn't even said anything to him. I mean, it's been tough to deal with, and I don't know of anybody other than killing what they call mountain lions. Of course, up north we call them panthers down here. There's been a few of those killed, called the livestock, and but never anything like that I know of. And I'm sure if anything like that happened to anybody around here, they're probably just like me. They probably haven't said anything. And it's just something that's not supposed to be real, but it is. I assure you.
Yeah, unfortunately, they are real. And like you said, I'm sure there are plenty of people in that area, unfortunately, who have seen these things. But like you said, they haven't shared that with anyone. Unfortunately, people like you are suffering in silence.
And that's exactly the word for it. Because my parents, my whole family knew something was wrong with me right off the bat. Because I spent every daylight hour if I wasn't working in the woods. And they knew something was wrong. I couldn't tell them. Figured they might call me in white coats, So I didn't say anything. It's hard to deal with anything by yourself. Everyone needs someone in their life. And that's just been one thing that I've had to deal with on my own.
Yeah, since the outdoors was such a huge part of your life, I can't even imagine what it must have been like for you to not only, number one, know that things like that are out there in the woods, but also, number two, have to deal with the fact that something you used to love doing with all of your spare time, in other words, going out into the woods, knowing that you weren't going to be able to do that, at least for the foreseeable future, that had to be really hard to deal with.
It is, and I was questioning if I was going to be able to at all. But I have pushed myself, but I am very alert now. I always was before, but I really am now. It totally changed my life.
If you could choose between not knowing that these things were out there and consequently being able to go out and do the things you used to love to do, oblivious to the fact that they were there, would you rather have it that way, or are you in a way glad that you know they're out there and consequently can take the appropriate action?
I'm glad that I know now. It's like I say, it's a thing I miss, supposedly. Biologically, it's supposed to be impossible. But, no, I am glad I know now. And, no, I definitely would not want to be out there and not know. And recommend to anybody, if they go to the woods hunting for anything, that just be aware of your surroundings. And if you can have somebody with you, if that's the way you like to hunt, then I recommend that. And I recommend having plenty of bullets. And somebody with you if that's the way you want it. But I'm glad I know it now. I'm glad I know. But it did change my life completely.
Oh, I don't doubt that one bit. It goes without saying that 7mm Magnum rifle you had in your hands is no slouch. That's just about on par with a .300 Winchester Magnum rifle. Having that much gun in your hands pointed at its face, did you still feel like you didn't have enough gun? What was your impression?
If anything, pretty much it walks this earth. It shot in the face with a 7 mag, depending. But most 99% of the time, it would kill anything. I didn't quite get the gun up to be able to do that. But if I would have got the barrel all the way to his face, I would have shot, but I will never forget his face is seared in my head like I can't even explain. But I didn't get to that point of being able to do that. But I truly believe I would have been ripped limb from limb regardless. That's what I believe because I saw it in his eyes, and just like I say, I've been up around horses all my life, and I know when they lay their ears back, you're fixing to have a problem, big problem. But luckily, jumped away from me and got away from me, and I got out of there myself, and hadn't been back by myself, like I say.
Well, I'm so glad it ended the way it did without you having a scratch put on you. If I understand you correctly, you're saying that you think even if you would have pulled the trigger and shot it, you're saying that you think it still would have been able to tear you apart somehow.
Well, why I'm saying that is because the pure evil. That's my best way to explain it to you. Pure 100% evil. So I do not believe that gun would have done anything. I don't know. I'm glad I didn't have to find out.
I'm so glad too. There have been so many instances where people have shot these things with high-powered rifles and big shotguns with no discernible effect. I'm glad you didn't pull that trigger too. Thank goodness.
Yep, but I truly believe I would have been, like I say, ripped limb from limb. It was that big. I've never seen, other than, I wouldn't say like a full-fledged bodybuilder, but somebody that's about middle ways and excellent. I mean, V-back, everything. I've never seen anything this muscular besides a bodybuilder. And black, coal black, except like on his nose part, on his muzzle, had a little bit of silverish, white, like down both sides. And his eyes, that's the main thing I'll never forget, was like an emerald, yellowish emerald color. Very, that's what I remember most. Never forget his eyes. Never forget his eyes.
That doesn't make you any different than pretty much any other eyewitness that I've spoken with. Of all the features that they see, they always remember those eyes more so than anything. And when they have nightmares and sit up in bed in the middle of the night, it's because of those eyes.
And many of those nights, man.
Yeah, I believe it, unfortunately. That's not all that uncommon. How tall, if you had to guess, how tall would it be?
I would say 8 feet, 7.5, 8, probably. I'd say closer to 8 feet.
It was a big one then.
Yes, sir. Extremely large.
Yeah, it sounds like it. How wide was it?
Oh, like I say, maybe you can just picture Mr. Olympian, just say Arnold Schwarzenegger, a shoulder width, something like that, basically like that. Arms were extremely longer compared to, a human, roughly knee area, and massive hands. My father's got gigantic hands. I think he wears like a 17 ring, but nothing like this. But like I say, this happened in a matter of probably a total of 4 seconds, or 4 or 5 seconds, when he turned, when that rabbit took off. And that's when he spotted me, about that long time. So, but that's long enough. When he jumped away from me, that's when I saw his bottom half, legs. Feet were kind of basically like you see, like the movie Underworld. Kind of shaped, kind of like that. Basically like a dog. See?
So it did have canine-style legs on it.
Yes, sir. Very muscular, like I say, from the knee up. And when I mean speed, when he took off, when he landed and took off to my right, I've never seen anything. Not even, I would compare it to a cheetah speed. I've never seen anything move that quick in my life. Never. It was, and disappeared. And then when I mean disappeared, it should have come out one end or other of that thicket. But it's like it went into, it's a honeysuckle thicket is what it was. But when I mean not very wide, I mean it was just a little strip of it that runs along that creek, probably 10 foot wide, never come out. That's that. And going that fast, there's no way that it shouldn't have come out the right side of that thicket. It's like it run into nothing and disappeared.
They do so many things that are hard to explain.
I truly don't believe there's, I'm not sure, Nick. I don't think they are, maybe, I don't know. I think they're a different realm or something. I don't know. I don't know.
They do things like that make you think that there's no way they could be flesh and blood, but then when you hear about other things they do, for me at least, it makes me swear that they must be biological, but that's just one more question I don't have an answer to. It sure does make you wonder.
Well, I'm glad that I finally got to speak to you about this, because you just don't understand what loads you took off of my shoulders. I appreciate you more than anything. I just didn't think there was ever going to be anybody I could talk about this with.
Well, I'm so glad we had a chance to talk about this and hash this out. Feels like I didn't really do much at all to help you, but I'm glad to hear that at least I was able to help you some.
You have done more than you can possibly imagine. A super load off of me being able to finally talk about this. Because unless things change and these things are seen or whatever, I'm just waiting for the time where I will be able to talk about it with my family, basically. Because I can't. You're basically the only one I've talked to about it. You took a major load off of me. I have been able to go on with my life now, because I'm sure you've had something in your lifetime that you just bad wanted to talk to somebody about and couldn't, but when you did, it was like somebody took a ton of weight off of you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I appreciate you more than you know.
Well, I can't tell you how glad it makes me to hear something like that. I'm so glad I was able to help you that way then.
I greatly appreciate it.
I can notice the difference between the first time we talked about this, and it seems like every conversation we have, I notice the improvement in you, how it becomes easier to talk about this. I know it's still not easy, but that's not any surprise. It's just flat out hard to talk about this, no matter how much time goes by. But I am so glad to hear the improvement in you and the fact that you are able to deal with it so much better now.
I am, and that's what I mean. When I finally got to talk to you, you really took a load off it, because I thought I was by myself.
I call that a prison without walls.
That's correct.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a prison without walls. I just mentioned how you're getting better at talking about what you went through that day, what you saw. If it's going to be too painful to talk about this, then let me know and we'll move on to a different topic. But when you think back to what you saw that day when it was standing there facing you, do you remember what it was doing with its hands and its arms as it was facing you?
Just mainly his left side, because, like I say, he had his back to me. And when that rabbit took off and he turned to his left, which would have been to my left too, all I saw was mainly that one arm, like, halfway picked up. I mean, I didn't see much of, as far as, because the tree was so high, off the ground from being laid down. I just saw, like, from his shoulder down to probably mid-forearm. But I really saw when he jumped, made that leap. That's when I saw the length, how long his arms were. Now, as far as the right arm, I didn't see much of till he did jump and take off to the right.
Did you notice claws on his hands?
Definitely, yes, I did. I would roughly say 4 inches, probably about like a normal size grizzly bear, about 4 inches long.
Ooh.
Roughly, I'm seeing this, as he's moving. But I could, yeah, they definitely stood out.
That just had to make it all that much worse when you see something like that that's got claws like that. As far as its muzzle would go, Cliff, you mentioned seeing that it had those grayish white stripes or streaks down either side of the muzzle, but when it was standing there facing you, did it have its mouth open or closed? What do you remember from that part?
About partially open, and teeth, massive teeth. But like I say, it was just a 4 or 5 second deal. But the eyes and the muzzle and the ears, his ears, is very, very pointy. But I would say they were probably 4 or 5 inches long themselves, maybe a hair bit longer. But the eyes and the muzzle and the size of the thing, that's what's beyond hard to explain. How massive, very, just pure evil. It scared me to death.
I want to make sure you understand, Cliff, the fact that it did scare you to death, that doesn't make you any less of a man. Anybody would have been scared to death if they would have come face to face with something like that. If they weren't scared to death in that situation, that just proves that they've got something wrong with them. You reacted the way that anyone would have reacted.
Because that's just something that's not supposed to be real. But I assure you it is. And I would much rather run into a grizzly bear any day than that. And I will never be alone out in any area that thick alone. It really changed my hunting, everything. I will have a partner and I will be heavily armed.
Well, like you said, at least you're in a position now where you do know that they're out there. It was a horrible experience you went through, but you did walk away from it physically unscathed. Of course, mentally, that's a different story, but at least it didn't put its hands or claws, teeth, you name it, on you. So in a way, you were able to make a clean break from that situation. Thank goodness.
I'm glad I did, because I truly believe even if I was shot, I don't think it would have done any good. Just from his eyes, that's what I'll never forget. Pure evil. That's the best way I know how to explain it. Not supposed to be real, Vic.
It sure would be nice if they weren't real, but unfortunately, as you saw, they are.
Yes, sir, they are. I assure you, they are.
As far as your recovery goes, Cliff, something I want you to remember is the fact that up until now, you haven't been able to share this with your family to get any support from them, but with all the people who listen to this show, you're going to have all of them pulling for you the way that I've been pulling for you ever since I found out about this encounter you had. Please don't lose sight of the fact that once this show airs, you're going to have a lot of people pulling for you and wishing you nothing but the best.
Well, I'm so appreciative of that, because I really thought I was alone in this situation. And you're a godsend. I appreciate you more than anything. I do appreciate it very much. And maybe one day I will be able to tell my family about it. But as of now, I just can't say anything to anybody.
I know that's got to be the hardest aspect of this, the fact that you know it happened, you know these things are real, but you still can't share this with your family and get their support to help you recover from this. I sure do hope, like you just said, that someday you can do that and they will be able to support you.
I'm hoping that too, because that's the main thing that bothers me more than anything. We're a real tight family and always have been, my whole family, so we're very close. But that's just something I've been having to keep to myself.
No, I understand. Don't lose sight of the fact that a lot of other eyewitnesses are going through the exact same thing as far as not being able to share this with their families that you just mentioned. A lot of other people are going through the exact same thing you're going through there too. So as long as you don't lose sight of the fact that it's not just you, that should help at least a little bit.
It does. It does very much.
Yeah, I was hoping it would. Do you have any closing comments you'd like to share?
Well, other than I recommend if anybody goes to the woods, or I know this may happen in other places, maybe where you can't have a firearm, but always have somebody with you, I would say. And be aware of your surroundings at all times. I was anyway, but I really am now. Just if you're hunting, I would recommend having plenty ammunition and somebody with you if possible.
That's good advice. Well, thanks again so much for coming on the show tonight, Cliff, and sharing the details of that encounter with us. I really do appreciate it.
And I appreciate you, Vic, more than you know. Quite a load off of me, because I really thought I was alone in this situation. And I appreciate you very much.
Well, I'm glad to help any way I can. Well, thanks again so much, and have a great night.
Thank you. You have a good night.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye. Hi, everyone. Thanks for listening to another episode of Dogman Encounters Radio. I'm Vic Cundiff, and I'll be your host for the show. Before we get started, if you've had a Dogman encounter of your own and would like to speak with me, whether in private or on the show, please go to dogmanencounters.com and submit a report. I'd love to hear from you. I'm sure you'll remember Jay Tucker from episode 76. Well, Jay's come back to talk about some experiences he had close to Taylor, Mississippi a few weeks ago for tonight's show. Jay, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
Jay, I don't need to tell you of all people about all the interesting phenomenon that's been going on around Taylor, Mississippi lately. From what I understand, you headed down that way last weekend and got some interesting information. Please tell us about that.
The stories and information that I got, I carried a guy that has worked in that area a good bit. I'm not going to give his name or what he does, but he led me to some people that, after a little bit of convincing and sitting down, sharing some of my stories and some of their stories, they reluctantly opened up. And from what I understand is these creatures, I'm not exactly sure, I don't have my notes laying right in front of me, but either in the 40s or 50s, there was a family that got into a feud with them. I'm talking about they were just killing livestock. They couldn't, if you put a chicken on the yard, it would be gone that night. They were just feuding. It was like Pat McCoy's, but it was dogmen. They didn't call them dogmen back then. I've got every name out there from Catamounts to the Hoopers. There was just so many different names. Boogers were mostly what everybody wanted to refer to them. And the giant wolves, hellhounds, that was the other word that we used. They would come down out of the Ozarks, through Tennessee and everything like that, every year. Come down and they would hunt and carry on and terrorize people. for years and years and years. It kind of slowed down. Don't exactly know why. There's even one guy that said he was out in Sardis Lake, which is close to Taylor, in a little canoe out there fishing. And at first, he said he thought it was an alligator coming across the water at him. He was up in the shallows there in a little bay. And he thought it was a big old alligator coming through the water at him. And then all of a sudden, as it gets closer, this creature comes out of the water. And he actually hid, abandoned his canoe and hid. And this thing destroyed his canoe. That's the story that I got from him. He was a young fellow when this happened. He's up in his 90s now, so it had to be a long time ago.
Well, that's a scary thought. While you were down there in Taylor trying to dig up information, from what I understand, you spoke with the gentleman who was in the bucket truck in one of the stories Darkwater shared in episode 83. What can you tell us about that?
I talked to some of the man's family that was supposedly, he worked for energy. He had an encounter with these creatures. His family is from Taylor. And from what I heard on the show, one of the guys said he was from Taylor. I said, that's why I believe. I did not get to talk to him exactly face to face. I talked to him over the phone. And he really didn't want to talk over the phone. He said he wanted to meet me in person. And from what I got, like I said, I'm supposed to go back and have that meeting. I believe it is one of the men from that episode. But he point blank told me he did not want his name used. He did not want to be recorded in any kind of way for any kind of show, for any kind of research purposes, or for whatever my own personal use. He did not want it recorded. He didn't want his name used, nothing else. That was one of the things he stressed about.
If you are able to interview him, that's going to be a very interesting interview to say the least.
Yes, sir, I do believe so.
You own a house that's not far from Taylor, don't you?
Yes, sir, I own a house in Oxford, Mississippi. It's less than 3 miles from the center of the University of Oxford.
How close is that to Taylor?
I'm not exactly sure about the mileage because we were talking and everything going there. It's probably 30 minutes, so I'm going to say 25, 30 miles.
Wow, that is close.
The house I live on, I can go 3 blocks up and be on it's not called Old Taylor Road. While it's in Oxford, it changes to another road. I cannot remember what that road is, but you stay on that road, never turn off that road, and if you get out of Oxford, it turns into Old Taylor Road, and that carries you right into Taylor.
That's almost right around the corner.
Yes, sir. Where I'm sitting at right now, talking to you, I'm less than an hour and 45 minutes away.
On one hand, being that close to Taylor would be pretty convenient whenever you wanted to head down that way and investigate. On the other hand, I guess that's kind of a bad thing. You're that close to Taylor.
Well, yes, sir. I've been doing a lot of research, and I've went out once. The reason why I contacted you again, I went out in the field with some of my ex-overseas buddies. That's what I'm going to call them. That's the way I'm going to describe them. I don't have permission to use their names or their nicknames. So I'm not going to do that to them, and I wouldn't want nobody to do that to me. But we've went out in an area over here close to where I live now that had some activity in it for research purposes. I never have went out to try to research any kind of cryptid before. The reason why I've done this was simply because the first encounter I had scared the bejesus out of me. And like I said, I don't like being scared. I don't like not knowing what this animal is, how it functions, or if I need it to, what will make it go away. I stress to everybody the story and stuff I'm going to tell Vic, do not try this unless you're willing to pay the ultimate price. Because live rounds, regular rounds, that you go to Walmart, wherever you want to go buy your rounds at, will not hurt this creature. I'm going to say that again. They will not hurt this animal.
Before you tell us about what went down on that stakeout you and your 2 friends went down there for, please tell us about your tactical background and experience and anything else that you bring to the table that you'd be at liberty to tell us about.
Yes, sir. My father, he did 4 tours in Vietnam. He was a forward recon scout sniper. Nearly everybody in my family either has a military background or law enforcement. During his fourth tour in Vietnam, he was hurt, could not perform his duties over there. So they shipped him back. But he did not want a discharge. So they sent him to Paris Island as a training officer, drill instructor. Whatever your listeners are used to hearing, that's what he got sent back for. He possessed a unique set of skills. When he was over there, his unit, what they specialized in was counter sniping. There were Viet Cong that were sent down to snipe our troops. Well, they taught themselves because there was no training back then. When I say there was no training, the military didn't even have proper sniper rifles. They used whatever they could find at the time to equip their soldiers for sniping. Most of them used Winchester Model 77s, Winchester 700s, stuff like that was what they went in the field with because the military didn't have a sniper squad. Well, like I said, they taught themselves everything they needed to know because there was no school on it. Well, when he got sent back over, the military decided, hey, look, this was such a effect over there, and we need to keep this going. We just don't need to disband it like they had for years and years and years. After every conflict, they decided to start a sniper school. My father just so happened he was one of the ones that helped with that school. And one of the things him and a couple of his buddies did was they didn't just teach how to snipe and how to shoot. They taught counter sniping, which is a whole different thing. I have the fortune and the unfortunate. Like I said, my father, the military man, that's the only way he knew to raise me. Back whenever I was 14, 15 years old, before I could go off and go on vacation with some of my other family or go to my grandparents or whatever, I had to run boot camp. I'm talking about I'm 14 years old out there with grown men out there in the middle. So that's how he taught me discipline and how he kept up with me. I learned everything that I know starting out from my father. Because my father, when he was in boot camp, he met a man, I'm not going to give his name. You can do your own research and find it. A man that actually started Blackwater. He went through boot camp with him. Blackwater has been sold multiple times since then. When I went to work there, that's who owned it. My father called him because I could not join the regular military because I had blowed my knee out when I was in high school football. Back then, if you had anything wrong, the military wouldn't take you. Now, if you can walk and chew bubblegum at the same time, you can pretty much get in. I had the fortune to train with people all over the world, not just with Americans. I've trained with Spetsnaz, I've trained with Israelis, I've trained with Pakistanis before we got in conflict with them. I've trained all over the world. Some of the people I trained with, or two of them were people that I carried with me this weekend, people that I know would die for me and I would die for them. There's no question asked. When I called these people, they were worlds away and came to me. Because this thing bothered me so much from my first encounter, I had to have answers. I had to know. That's just my nature. Like I said, I'm not one of these people that see something on TV or whatever. I've actually lived it, done it. Anybody that doesn't believe that or has a problem with it, I can't help that. There's a lot of things that I cannot talk about that I've done. Yes, the military uses private contractors more than most people want to know, for simple reasons of plausible deniability. A contractor can go in and do jobs the regular military cannot do because of the Geneva Convention. Vic, I don't know how much more you want me to go into or I need to go into.
No, I think you revealed enough on that. How many weeks ago did you say that stakeout was?
Now it's been about 3.
Okay, I see. About 3 weeks ago. Did you want to tell the listeners about the location of this stakeout, or did you want to keep that information hidden?
I'll tell you, it was in Tishomingo County. That's what I'll tell you.
How long were you staked out at that location?
We were there for 4 weeks.
All right, Jay, starting with the earliest events, please walk us through what happened when you were on that stakeout.
Okay. Initially, we were going over where we weren't going to stay. We were going to go in there in the daytime, so it was easier for us to see, knowing what was going on around us. We set out late. bait stations. We set up trail cameras, like I said, bait stations with trail cameras to see what we could get in that area. And we would come back to my house that's several miles from there. Well, our bait started being took, and we didn't know at first because it was, whatever was taking it was avoiding our trail cameras at first. And I don't understand if it was, at first we didn't know why it was doing it. Then after we realized, yes, this is what we're looking for, we found a place over there that had cabins for rent, and we rented a cabin so we could stay there 24 hours a day. Go in and out there during the night and day. All right. We started having some of our bait was odd things were happening. It would take, I want to say, bites out of our bait and leave it on top. Now, this is a trap. What we set up were just regular animals couldn't get to it. We had to actually manipulate a trap door, push your hand up inside of it, reach in the back. It's the only way you can get to it and get it out. Now, if an animal, small animal, would try to go in there and get this, but we did catch a couple of smaller animals that would go into the trap and try to get the bait out. It would trap them in there so they'd be there when we get back. This, you had to actually push down, reach in, while you were still pushing down on it, and pull it out. That's the only way you can get it physically out of there. Well, it would reach in, get it out, take bites out of it, and leave it on top of our cage. I don't know if any other animal will do that, do you?
No, I don't.
Okay. Like I said, we had trail cameras set up. At first, we didn't know why it was. We still really don't know exactly why, but it was actually avoiding our trail cameras. We didn't know if we just had it placed badly or what. We tried every different. We set 4 trail cameras up on one station. There was no way something could get in there without tripping this camera. It took one of the cameras smashed down off. That's the way it went in. It avoided the other cameras by smashing that camera and going in. How it found that camera, we still haven't figured it out. I don't know if it's they send off an IR signal, laser out, so whenever something walks in front of it, it sets it off. I don't know if it's seen that IR beam somehow, or it just sensed it, or smelled the camera or whatever. And we used every form of scent eliminator you can think of. Every form that I've ever been taught, could think of, my buddies could think of. And we're real good at this. And like I said, I used to carry guided hunt people out on guided hunts. Like I said, I know how to eliminate human odor. I don't know if it just smelled it or what, but it found those cameras and would eliminate those cameras. So we couldn't get a picture of it. Why it was doing that. Okay. So going from there, we decided to figure out what this was. We needed to set up and stay on a bait station. It was consistently coming to. It was consistently coming to. We thought it was this animal. So we go out, bait it. We act like we leave the area. We sneak back in. We call it ghosting. That's where you go out, you leave no sign, leave no nothing of when you go through an area. That's what we did when we come back in. And like I said, after we did that for a little while, this creature come from the northeast corner of this property we were on. It's a bunch of rocks and hills and stuff like that. It was using those rocks, going from rock to rock, so it wouldn't leave like any footprints. Because that's the other thing we couldn't figure out, is we could never find any footprints, not discernible footprints. You'd have partial of print, or it looked like a partial print, but it was never a discernible, yes, that's a footprint. We couldn't figure it out, but there's a lot of sandstone and shale and stuff like that in this area, and granite stones, because the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains comes down to this area. And like I said, there's granite stones, there's big houses, boulders, caves, all kind of stuff up through there. Well, it was using those rocks coming down through there. And at first, what I thought was a Bigfoot. I'm thinking, oh crap, we got 5 days of tracking this animal, and I think it's a dog man from what everybody's been telling me that's seen this animal. It looks like a giant dog, but this is a Bigfoot. Then I got a good look at it. It looked like a Bigfoot body that somebody had took and stuck a dog man's head on. Its hands look like, you just whacking it like I described to you, it looks like giant raccoon hands. Think of a raccoon's hands twice as big as yours, was looked like eagle claws on every finger. That's the way its hands look. Its feet have claws on it too. Kind of similar to that, but they're a little fatter and shorter. But its feet look like Bigfoot feet with claws on it. They're a little bit curved. I don't know if that's just the way they are or what with this animal. There was only ever one animal, the same one. The way I described it to you, he kind of looked, he was real tall, probably 8 foot tall, but it's as tall as it was, it looked like it should have weighed more. But it just, I don't know if it just looked thin to me. I don't know why, but it just did. It looked like it should have weighed more than what it did. But we never got to weigh it or nothing, but it looked thin. That was the only creature we saw. That was the first day, and I think it caught a whiff of us because it did not stay in that area for very long. It somehow it left. We caught a glimpse of it. It was coming to the trap, and for some reason it decided it didn't want that no more, and it left. Went totally on the other side of the property where we had traps, and that's where it decided it took the bait out of every trap we had and just left it on top of it. Didn't bother it, didn't try to eat it, it just took it out and laid it on top. So that kind of got us discouraged. What are we going to do? How did this animal do that? On the second day from that, this is the 6th day in, one of my friends that were with me talked me into letting them stay at one of the stations by themselves. They were by themselves. They were probably 300 yards away from us. We were each one stationed out a little ways from each other. And it started getting dark. It was probably about 7 o'clock, I want to say, because it done got dark. Like I said, it done got to where you couldn't see. And all of a sudden, we started hearing rounds go off. And we have radios. And we started calling to that person on the radio, and they didn't respond. And we just kept hearing rounds go off. They were still mobile and going because they have a fully automatic AK-47, because what we went out with, what most people can't use, then they don't have. We went out with fully militarized weapons. They were using a fully automatic AK-47. I know 2 clip changes, because it's fire, 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 and then it's a long pause, and it's fire again. My other friend is closer than I am. They go in to help my other friend as backup. They are carrying the M4 carbine, 5.56, full native rounds. He empties a clip on it. Now, at this time, like I said, I haven't got there. I'm waiting for them to fall back to me because I'm the last person there. They finally make it back to me, and as they make it back to me, this creature, it's not really advancing straight towards them. It's kind of like taking its time and going over here and going over there, but it's not because they're firing at it. It's their rounds are not having any effect. They're hitting this animal. You can tell, you can see the impacts on this animal, but it's not doing any damage on this animal. It's like it doesn't even bother it. My friend, the second one, I'm gonna call him friend too, he's a large fella. His sidearm is a 50 caliber Desert Eagle with full metal jackets. He decides to start cutting loose with it because it's a larger caliber than his 5.56. It still has no effect on it. Finally, I start cutting loose with it. I'm shooting at it with a 308. I'm trying to take headshots, whatever I can. That kind of deterred it a little bit because it couldn't exactly see where I was firing from. It only seen them 2 first. Then it figured out, there's 3 of them. Well, it kind of stayed off to the back, and that let us retreat out of the area, get back into safety, and it stopped following us. I don't know why it stopped following us, because it was definitely not scared of us, and we were not hurting it. I think we confused it more than anything. Well, for a couple of days, we had a brainstorm. We come back and, we were trying to figure out, like they were telling me, I watched the fur move on it. I know I center mashed it. This thing, it did not hurt this animal. It was not affecting this animal whatsoever. So probably 3 days go by, and we kind of regroup, and we get another game plan up. Now we're into the middle of the third week, I believe. Like I said, it's about 3-4 days it went by. One of my friends, friend number 2, he is an ex-Army Ranger sniper. He has access to a 3038 Lapua blue line that he has brought with him. He is using military-grade armor-piercing rounds. This round is designed to stop a vehicle's engine at 1,000 yards. That right there should tell you the firepower that it has in it. We use him as a lookout. He's to cover us. Our second backup is, okay, if our rounds are not hurting this animal again, and it gets on top of us, we have thermite grenades that he had access to that he brought. Our last resort, if this animal got on us, was to pop a thermite grenade and go out with a bang, because I did not want to be alive when this animal was trying to beat me. So we go out that third day. Like I said, we're in the middle of the third week. We go back out. We set up our stations again. We go back to now. I got this. During this time that we're messing with this animal, there's a certain place that we can tell every night we hear this howling from. I'm talking about it's not a regular dog howl. Nothing like it. It's a weird howl, growl off in the distance. We finally track it back to where we find animal scat, stuff like that, up on this huge overlooked cropping rock. And my buddies started calling it the Howling Rock. That was just the thing they were calling, so we could have an idea of where, we're going to the Howling Rock. Well, we decided if that's where it's going every night at this certain time, that's where we're going to be at, and we're going to see if we can put this animal down and try to get a specimen to figure out what this thing is. We have him back about 300 yards from us. That's as far as he felt comfortable staying away from us, cover us. Like he had 338. Me and my other friend, we're going to be used as live bait. We go out, not intentionally, not being quiet, not being trying to be stealthy. We want everything around us to know we're in here. We even start playing like we're baiting the traps and everything. Well, we're over close to his howling rock, and apparently he did not like it. This animal come in with every intention of ripping us apart. My buddy starts cutting down on him again. At 47, I cut loose for the M4 carbine. We run. I dumped 2 clips. I know at 40 and 50 yards, 2 clips. That's 40 rounds of 5.56 that did not hurt this animal. It was like shooting something out with an airsoft gun. It just kept advancing, and it looked like it had every intention in destroying us, and it wanted to do it. And it knew that it was scaring us because we kept falling back. We had fall back positions. We kept falling back. And then I got kind of cut off from my other buddy. They got to the safe zone fallout area, and I got kind of cut off because from hitting each other with crossfire, I had to go a different route. Well, that different route kind of boxed me in. I had nowhere to go. This animal now is advancing on me. I'm shooting it with my M4. I had my sniper rifle, 308. Fired 5 rounds with that off. Then I got down to my sidearm, which is a 9mm, and started pumping out rounds with it. My second friend finally got in a different position. He's now probably 150, 200 yards away from me. When all of a sudden, there's no mistaking a 338 when it goes off, especially if you're in the front of it with this report. This animal had the murky, snarl look on me, especially when I'm kind of half down firing behind this big boulder, like it knows it's fishing to get me, and I'm dead. My friend first hit it in the shoulder with a 338, about where you put your thumb up, where your collarbone and your shoulder rotates, just about 3 inches below that. That's where the first round hit it. When the first round hit it, it let off this god awful scream, squall, and it smirked. I wish you could have seen it. The way this animal looked was like when you have cornered an animal and it knows that it's in danger. Its whole demeanor changed. It is now no longer wanting me and thinking it's supposed to kill me. It's thinking, oh, I have messed up. They have hurt me because this round hurt him. And like I said, because I seen blood fly. It spun, kind of went down on its knee and its hand out in front of it, and went to trying to go off to my left and away from me in a diagonal, trying to get away from me back into a little bit of a swampy area, because the other way straight behind him is straight up a hill, and it's trying to go up this draw that's kind of got a swampy area in it. That's when the second round goes off, man. The first round, like I said, he was anywhere from 100 to 150 yards away from me, and he's shooting over my left shoulder about 3 feet from me. That's how close the rounds were coming the first round when it went off. That was to get him off me because the animal was only 25 feet away from me. Like I said, there's no doubt of what it was, how big it was, or what it smelled like, or what its intentions were. When I say it was close, I could see when I hit it with a 9mm, the rounds were deflecting off the animal and hitting the ground. Like I said, when he hit it the first time. The second time, it was probably 200 plus yards away from it, and he hit it in its left, it's right thigh. It's right thigh, because it was opposite of the shoulder he hit him in the first time. He hit him in his right thigh, in the back, about, I'm going to say, 6 to 8 inches, like from where I'm going to say up from its knee. The bigger part of his leg. And when he hit it, it spun him around, and he hit the ground in, and he hollered again. Well, then it's scrambling on all fours trying to get up this draw still. And there's this little bitty old road that crosses right there. My friend gets up, repositions, because it's got to cross this road to get into this little, not really a road, it's like a little path. A clearing little area. It's only a little clearing area right through there. It's got to cross that area it's trying to go to. He gets up, repositions. Now this animal, when it crosses, is about 500 yards away from him. He tries to center mass it as it's kind of getting up, going back down, getting up, going back down, and it keeps turning to look to see if we're following. We're not following it, so he's doing a pretty good job of knocking it down. We were hoping he would just go ahead and knock it down and stay down. And as it gets in this clearing, it kind of gets up midway. He said he was aiming for about where its belly button should be. There's no way to see a belly button, but where your belly button would be. He kind of aimed center mass there. That way he could actually do a pass through, hit his backbone, and break his back and paralyze. Well, it hit about 3 inches over to the right side of where your belly button would be, in the abdomen. That spun it around, it hit the ground. When it hit the ground, then it rolled, went off this little hill. That's the last time we've seen it. It made the god-awful noise going off back up into that swampy area, draw, whatever you want to call it. That's the last we've seen of it. We got samples of the blood. We got samples of the scat, and they have been sent off. When I get that back, Vic is going to be the person that gets that. And that was our encounter. I want to stress to everybody listening to this. I have training in how to deal with dangerous people and situations. That's the reason why I felt comfortable doing this. The 2 people I took with me were very well trained. One of them is still active. I trust my life with them. They trust their life with me. Like I said, every one of us knew going into this, if it got bad, we were going to die. I stress to you, do not try this. Do not, because, like I said, what saved my life was a round that I guarantee you, unless you had the military contacts I got, they're not going to have.
How could you ever sleep after going through something like that?
It's just the nature of it. Like I said, that's the hair-raisingest encounter I've ever had with some kind of animal in the woods. But that's not the most dangerous time that I've ever. I think I've been in 2 IED blasts. I've watched a very, very, very dear friend of mine get blown up. Like I said, that's the kind of life and stuff I've lived. Like I said, I have no problem dying. I'm not scared of dying. I would hate not to see my kids anymore, but I'm not. I crossed that bridge a long time ago. I'm not scared of that. Dying does not bother me. What bothers me is not knowing something. If something scares me, I cannot. It's gave me more sleepless nights not knowing what this animal is, because everything I've read on it, nothing hurts it. It's not scared of nothing. Well, by God, I found something. It does hurt it, and it is scared of it. The only problem is that most, like I told you before, I don't know how we would be able to arm somebody without spending $10,000 to get them armed with something that would help them in that. And you're talking about a fairly sized good gun that my friend is over 6 foot tall, weighs a little over 300 pounds, and he ain't fat. He fires an M60 like most people fire an M4 carbine. This is not a small weapon. This is not an anti-personnel gun. This is an anti-vehicle gun. This gun was actually designed to stop vehicles. I don't know, Vic, if I need to say about what we find out that it doesn't like.
Yeah, it's probably best not to share that information. Someone might go out and get themselves killed thinking that that information will protect them somehow.
Okay, yeah, that's the reason why I didn't put that part in that story. I know I left a lot out of the story. I don't want nobody to get hurt. I don't know how to tell the story without, unless it was set that way, and to tell, without giving more than I need to give away without somebody getting hurt. I do not want anybody to get hurt. Like I said, my family knows me. My wife, like I said, my wife, my kids know me. If something was to happen to me, they know that I died happy because I died doing something I believe in, something it meant something to me. And honestly, that's the way I hope to go. I did not want to die in my sleep regretting something I should have done or I could have done. I know that may sound stupid to a lot of people.
No, I don't think it's stupid at all. I think it's just a way of life you've chosen.
I don't know if you'd call it courage or just plumb stupidity. But like I said, if you've been around mechanics all your life, that's pretty much more than likely what you're going to do, and that's all you know, and that's what makes you happy. And that's like I said, I did what I knew to do. I quit because my health got bad for me, and that's probably because of what I used to do. And I felt like I would be endangering somebody else just for me to be out there.
Well, that's admirable that the safety of the people around you was a lot more important to you than you continuing that on because you wanted to do that. I'm really impressed. Bouncing back to 2 weeks ago on episode 83, the guest was talking about her 22-year-old daughter who wanted to go to Taylor and investigate dogmen. What do you have to say about the idea of her doing that?
Well, the easiest way I can answer you that, Vic, I don't mean to upset nobody. I don't mean to come across as arrogant. But I hope she kissed her mama goodbye, and I hope she gets all her affairs in order, because if you go looking for this thing, I'm telling you, you're going to find something you do not want to. Ask anybody that has had an encounter. They wish they'd never seen it. I wish now I'd never had my encounter because it wouldn't have stuck in me. Like I said, I have more sleepless nights about wondering if one of these things come into my house or get to my house or get around my kids, what am I going to do to stop it? Because everything that I've heard, like I said, nothing stops these things and nothing scared them until what I found. And like I said, I do not advise nobody to. Like I said, yes, I went down to Taylor to find some answers because, like I said, I did not realize until I talked to you again, like I said, I did not know there was different kinds. Like I said, the first one looked like a giant dog up on its back leg. This one looked like a scrawny Bigfoot that somebody took a big dog's head on. I did not know there were different kinds. There's so much unknown. Everybody wants to bash, and I get so upset when I hear these people talking about a Sasquatch expert, a dogman expert. There are no experts. There's people out there trying to learn, but there's no way to be an expert. So I said, I keep finding different things every day. talking and learning. And like I said, I think some of the earlier Bigfoot stories that I've heard may have actually been Dogman instead of Bigfoot because of the way they acted and the way people described them. Because, like I said, I've heard them called everything in the last weekend, from boogers to catamounts to hoopers. There's so many different names. Like I said, there's no telling how many different off-breed species or whatever they are. But no, I don't suggest anybody going to look for it unless you're ready to die. No, sir. That's just the way I look at it. Unless you're wanting to die, you have nothing else you want to do. I can't tell nobody not to do something I'm doing except for unless you want to die. Unless you want to get hurt. Because I have my friend to thank for my life again. Which ain't the first time he's ever saved me. But like I said, I have every knowing intention that this thing in another 5 seconds would have been eating me. Or trying to eat me. But I had other plans for it. That's what I'm saying. To go out and hunt something, you got to be willing to die. I was willing to, when he pulled the trigger, the reason why he went ahead and pulled the trigger, he said he seen me reaching up to grab my thermite grenade. That was my next course. And anybody that can research what a thermite grenade is knows what it's going to do. They have a 50-foot kill radius. And another thing I'll share, to let people know how many rounds we let loose. The first encounter, we had the local park rangers and sheriff's department come out to see what exactly we were freaking doing out there because they were getting reports that sounded like World War III was what we were having out there. We didn't tell exactly what we were doing, but I'll say that, and I'm going to leave that alone.
As far as firing those automatic weapons out there would go, that's not something where you can present a license to the authorities when they show up and get off the hook by doing that, is it?
Yes, sir, kind of, sort of. I have a Class 3 license, and I have a Class 4 tax stamp. That allows me, because of what I used to do, I have automatic weapons. That allows me to own a Class 3 license, allows me to own and possess and transfer to another Class 3 person automatic weapons. And there is no such thing, please, people understand this, there's no such thing as a silencer. They are called suppressors. There is no actual silenced weapon. They just cut the noise level down. Suppressors. And it falls in there, it's a gray line in there, and it's on explosive. And I said it's kind of a gray area there. The Class 4 tax stamp, that's for the suppressors and stuff like that. I have a degree in criminal justice. I have a degree in communications. Both are from Oxford, Mississippi. The federal government, a lot of times when they're looking for a reason to come in on somebody, that's what they get them on, is a weapons violation like that. You would not believe how often that happens.
Gee, when that first round from that .338 Lapua hit the Dogman, can you talk more about the response you saw in the Dogman from being hit like that and consequently wounded?
It seemed like at the time it went on forever, but there was about 2 to 3 seconds where this thing had this look in its eyes. It went from hunter to prey. It knew it had screwed up because we had heard it. Until we heard it, it was having fun. It was not worried about us at all. It was going to do what it wanted to at its leisure. As soon as we heard it, we made blood come out of it. It knew it had messed up and it wanted away from there. We tracked this animal back as far as we could. And then we couldn't find it. I said, where we tracked it at, you know, animals, when you wound them, they go to water. And if you got in the water and the water stopped the blood flow enough to where we couldn't track it by the blood, like I said, we looked for 3 more days. We were out there a total of 4 weeks. And we could not find this animal. We lost all sign of this animal. I don't know if it went off somewhere and died or just left the area. But we did not find any more sign in that area. And if we did, we accomplished something I don't think nobody else has. We ran a Dogman out of his area.
Yeah, I can't say I've ever heard of anyone else driving one out of an area either. Of course, you had the uncles that one of the guests talked about shooting and killing a Dogman in an earlier episode, but I can't recall anyone ever talking about a Dogman that they drove out of an area like that. Now, in the pre-interview, you told me about a group of people that were in the area where you were doing that stakeout, or I guess at least they were fairly close to you. Please tell us about them and what they were doing there.
Yes, sir. There were park rangers, biology students. There were uh, federal wildlife people out there. What they were doing is we've had a problem this year with a disease called blue tongue in our deer. What it is they drink themselves to death. They cannot get enough to drink no matter how much they drink. You'll find several deer grouped up around water sources, dead. And that's what it is. They drink themselves basically to death. They're trying to find out if that blue tongue can be passed on to other animals, like the predators and the varmints that come out and eat on those dead bodies from those deer. What got us in the area we were starting in was several reports that we have an overabundance of coyotes. In the area we were in a 2-mile block, we counted 9 different groups of coyotes. Not small groups either. We're talking about anywhere the smallest group had 9. There was one group that had 12 coyotes during that time. That's what they were out studying. And they said the coyote population was acting weird. And the small rodents and stuff like that, the possums and stuff like that, the raccoons and stuff, they were fighting less and less for those animals, which would, of course, be contributed to the high number of predators in the area. But they were worried about seeing if those coyotes could contract some form of that blue tongue and pass it on or carry it out of the area.
Well, that sure is a scary thought, thinking about all those people who were running around in the area while that dogman was loose with blood on its mind.
Yes, sir. Luckily, they were, I'm going to say 5 or 6 miles south of where our area was that we were actually using. But like I said, I believe these animals have a huge brain. From the people that I talked to in Taylor, that would say these animals, I have not quite figured out yet how they use that, where these animals are coming from. But they told me, like I said, they were coming out of the Ozarks and out of Tennessee and coming down, and they would stay down. I'm not going to say the months and stuff like that because I haven't got all my facts and research all together yet. But I thought for more than 6 months they would come down and stay down here and then go back up that area. Well, that's probably 50, 60-mile area. That's a huge area.
Yeah, that is a big area. When all this was going on, did you ever smell anything from that dogman?
Oh, yes, sir. What I was telling you, it smelled like dead animal. It was the stinkiness. It doesn't smell like a squatch. Squatch, it does have a musty, something, well, not all the time, but sometimes they have a musty, like skunk or whatnot. This smelled like dead, rotting, just decay, just stink. If you've ever come up on a dead animal in the woods, that's what it smelled like. That death, decay smell. That's the easiest way I can describe what it smelled like. Like I said, I was 25 feet from this animal. There's no doubt that what it was, no, it was not a Bigfoot. If you wanted to believe that it was a Bigfoot, I'm sorry to tell you, you're wrong. This was not a Bigfoot. Like I said, there's no doubt what this animal was. There's no doubt what I shot at. Like I said, I seen the rounds hit and go into the dirt. And it did not phase this animal. We got hair samples, we got blood samples, we got scat samples. You can't convince me this was no Bigfoot. Ain't no Bigfoot. I've seen several Bigfoot, like I told you before, and had to show them Bigfoot out with Australia. This was not a Bigfoot. This was a dog man. Like I said, I didn't know they looked like that, but the first one I seen did not look like this one. This was a dog man.
Well, you'll have people who swear up and down that what you encountered down there was a kind of Sasquatch. There's not much you can do about that, but at least you realized that it was a dogman and not a Sasquatch. Now, you mentioned that blood trail that you followed when you shot that thing with that 338 Lapua. Can you go into more details about what happened when you were trying to track it through the bush?
Yes, sir. After it kind of rolled down this hill, after you took the last shot at it, it went out of sight. It's a bunch of water built up. We've had a lot of rain here lately, and there's a bunch of water pooled up back in that area. and you could tell where it kept going into this water, and so the water would be all muddy and bloodied up, and then it would go a little ways, and you'd see if the blood would kind of stop from the pool, then start up again, and it'd go back into another pool of water, and then it's the little creek over it got in, and actually went up the creek about 200 yards last we seen and could find. And after it come out of the creek, that's where we lost it, because it got up on these big boulders, and we followed the wet tracks as far as we could until we couldn't find any more wet tracks, and we just lost the animal from there. But we didn't find any more blood. But when you get an animal that keeps going into the water and out of the water, into the water, it will still be bleeding, but the water will cause it not to show up like blood anymore. It's not going to be it's not going to look like blood. It's just going to be watery looking, mixed in with the ground, and if it touches the ground, it'll just look like you dropped the water instead of being blood.
Ah, I see. That makes sense. This thing seemingly could detect your trail cam somehow. Please go into more detail on that and tell us what you noticed.
For somehow it was, I believe somehow it was seeing our beam. That is my personal, I have no way to back that up, except for knowing my ability to get rid of human scent. Deer, as spooky as they are, I've been able to get my scent down where I've been downwind of a deer, and the wind changed on me, blow straight into their face, and them not spooked, so they didn't smell me. We used every known to me, to my friends, that we could think of, ability to descent these cameras, to hide these cameras. These are several $100 cameras that were used. They're not stuff you go to Walmart and buy. They were high quality. They take video and still pictures. Somehow, he kept finding them. I cannot figure it out, except for it seemed they shoot an IR beam out, and they do not make a sound because they're digital. They do not flash because they have an IR shot on them, except for that IR beam. When something breaks that beam, that's when it goes off. That's the only thing I can think of. It was seeing that. That's the only thing I can think of. But it would smash them. We lost several cameras.
Well, that could get expensive really quick.
Oh, it did. And that was one of the reasons why we decided to go ahead and try to stop getting it. First, that's what we were going to do, just get video of it. And that's when the thing got turned and we wound up in a firefight. Well, it wasn't really a firefight. It was, we were shooting at it and it was steadily coming.
I can't even imagine what that would have been like.
You get the most helpless feeling in the world. I'm talking, you got somebody shooting a fully automatic AK-47 at you. I've never heard of anything advancing on that, except for an armored plated vehicle or this dogman. That's what it did. It just kept advancing. I've never in my life heard or seen of anything like that. Like the regular rounds were not hurting it. And these are NATO rounds. NATO said that you cannot use anything that causes more wound damage than necessary. Basically, is the rough wording of that. You can look that up. You can't use hollow points and stuff like that. That's why no military uses them, because it's against the Geneva Convention. It falls back under the military guidelines. You have to use steel ball ammunition because you're not intentionally trying to wound somebody, you're trying to kill them. I don't understand that part of it, but that's what it says. We're using nail rounds, bull metal jacket, stuff that will pierce armor vest, and it didn't affect it. I don't want somebody to run out here to Walmart and go get some stuff you go deer hunting with and come back and shoot this thing, because it's not going to do nothing but piss it off.
I sure hope no one tries to do that.
I'll say this at the very end. People can take this for what they want. If somebody goes out and tries it and they wind up getting hurt, I don't want somebody to come back and hold you liable or me liable, because we're both telling them, do not go try this. Vic did not ask me to go do this. He had no idea I was doing it. I contacted him once to find out if he knew anybody that could help me with some trace evidence I had. I don't know if you remember that or not, but that's the reason why I was contacted, because of the blood evidence in the scat and the hair. We found somebody, my friend, that knew somebody that could get it done at a reputable lab, so when we get these results back, nobody can say nothing about them. Vic had no idea until I contacted him, what was it, 3 nights ago or 4 nights ago, of what I actually did.
Yeah, that was about 4 nights ago.
About 4 nights ago, he had no idea, and I'm pretty sure he was, he was blown away because he had no idea when I contacted him again what I actually wanted. And then when I told him what I done this, I think I floored him a little bit. Like I said, he had no idea. I don't want anybody to try to hold Vic or me accountable if you go out and try this. You're taking your own life, and whoever you take out there, remember, you're taking their lives in it too. If you go out by yourself, I can guarantee you, you're not coming back. This is a way smarter creature than some people are giving it credit for, and it is deadly. I said, that's all I had to say about that.
Yeah, I hope people listening do take your advice and don't go out and try to do that. Well, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming back on the show and sharing all the details of what happened with us. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. When I get the results back, trust me, you'll be getting an email and probably a call. Like I said, we'll talk about that on a later date.
That sounds good. Yeah, we'll get the details all worked out on that. Well, thanks again so much for coming back on, Jay. I really do appreciate it. You have yourself a great night.
Yes, sir. You too.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.